Welcome to the Primal Training podcast. I'm your host, Mamoun Bennani, a holistic fitness and nutrition coach. The goal of this podcast is to bring ancestral wisdom to the modern world by sharing insightful conversations with experts in movement, nutrition, and spirituality. I really hope to provide practical strategies to enhance your lives. Enjoy. A few more seconds. Here she is. Hi, Alejandra. How are you?
Hi, Mamoun. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. So good to have you here today.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, so I'm super excited. I know we're gonna go in a deep cave, like a nice conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I discovered your work through Instagram. I saw some of your moves. I was like really fascinated. I saw the connection of your movements with your kind of your mindset. So I saw that there was some coherence between your movement and what's happening in your mind. And then I just realized a few weeks ago, I think, that I saw that you published your first book. So it's Energy in Motion right here. And so I went through it, and it gave me a good idea about what you are here in this world to do. What's your message? And I think it would be really good to share your message with other people, and you deserve to be heard. I think you have a lot of things you can share with the world, and what better way than a podcast to share these ideas. And Alejandro, I'll let you quickly introduce yourself, your background, and how you came to this journey.
Thank you so much. I love that you have your copy there.
Always here,
Thank
yeah.
you. My name is Alejandra Diaz Mercado. I am the award-winning author of the book Energy in Motion: How to
Mhm.
Unleash Your Mind and Take Action Now. And I'm
Right.
originally from Mexico City. I am currently living in Burlington, Ontario.
Hmm.
And yes, I birthed my first book. And it happened throughout the last couple of years, which have been a very interesting time to be alive, for sure.
Right.
Yes. And I'm excited to share this time with you because I truly, even though we touched base last week,
Hmm.
this is a surprise for me. I don't know what you're going to ask, and I don't know what's going to flow out of my mouth, but I'm very
Yeah.
excited. Yes.
Yeah, me too. Last time we were speaking, I had so many questions that I didn't want to ask. I'm like, I want to let the mystery happen, like during this conversation. So I'm keeping it. We're gonna go really intuitively. So there isn't many rules, and we just let the energy flow, right?
Absolutely. Flow is a big word in my life, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't always there. And like you
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm currently in a state where my movement practices and my personal practices and my practice as an author reflect that state of flow in my life. And here's a little secret. For those who don't know, that is why I chose the Fibonacci sequence, which
Yeah.
is, a universal mathematical sequence that can be found and not just in the universe, in the way the planets move, in the way the universe expands, but also at the microscopic level, on
Mm-hmm.
plants, on fruits. And to me, it is the code of the expansion of it, just, a human consciousness, of life, of beingness.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so flow to me reminds me of that geometrical figure.
Yeah, how I was curious too. Like I read in your book about the geometric figure, and how does it apply to the flow notion? Is it something that is it the rate of growth, the way it's applied, or is it I wasn't sure how it is applied exactly.
Okay, so in the book, I talk about it. I don't necessarily integrate the two concepts. I talk about flow as being a state of ease and peace
Mm-hmm.
that any individual can achieve to go through life.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either, as a clear example of what's happening right now, it's not easy, yet you can choose to go about it in a state of flow, being open to learning about yourself and the world around you and others,
Mm-hmm.
or you can choose to go in with a state of resistance and
Mm-hmm.
fighting and feeling negative emotions without understanding them. Because I
Right.
also speak about the concept of flow as being able to hear, understand, and process negative emotions. Now, I don't speak about the two concepts, flow and the growth ratio in the book. And
Mm-hmm.
here's where anyone listening is going to get a golden nugget.
Mm-hmm.
A state of flow, we might, my listener might envision it as just a, as if laying down on top of water, peacefully coasting through, laying down on top of a lake or the sea or a river or a calm pool. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're in that state and you're observing the world around you, there is an unfoldment of ideas and a connection, and it continues to grow and expand. And it goes up and down. Like there are
Right.
good times and then there are rougher times. And it doesn't mean that the more awakened you are, you're going to feel less of the rough times. On the contrary, it's a flow on the rough times where you're able to extract more learnings and
Mm-hmm.
continue to expand. So that is where the integration with that happens. It's an
Okay.
effortless movement throughout it.
Yeah. Yeah. You really feel the wave coming and you just let yourself go and it leads you to the adventure. I know there's this quote, I'm probably misquoting it, but it says something along the lines of the way of the heart is, what is it again? The way of the heart, is bumpy and the weight of the head is easier in a sense that like it takes you through a bumpy road, but at the end of the day it's like the best journey you can have because you see all this, you have all this adventure, but the way of the mind or the head is maybe like simpler, like it's well organized, but at the end of the day it's like just flat, and it maybe depend on people the experience they want to have, but it's good to know, like to understand this notion of the flow and the wave and how like just following the wave you're gonna go through some bumpy road but really rewarding.
Yes, I love that you mentioned right now the way of the mind, the way of the heart. And recently I heard someone, and I came to this intuitively and then started observing it. But I
Mm-hmm.
recently hear of how scientists, so people who are really connected with the mind, have started talking about the mind, the brain, the heart, and the gut as three brains.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a concept that I have saved for my second book. So it's a
Yeah.
surprise. This is the first time I'm sharing this with the world. Now that I have put it out there,
Yeah,
I
here
just
we
make it
are.
happen. So the way of the mind, I feel much like you. It is simpler in a way that the mind tries to define, label, and understand. And it is a natural thing to do because humans need to feel safe in order to grow. To grow,
Mm-hmm.
they need
Mm-hmm.
to have that stability, that safety ground, that certainty, which I speak about in the first chapter.
Right. Yeah.
And that certainty allows them to expand and grow. Without that certainty, human beings revert back to fear,
Mm-hmm.
to
Absolutely.
fear-based, to fear-based behaviors, which is what I'm not saying it's bad. This is the reason why you and me exist right now, because our ancestors reacted accordingly to their fear-based and
Mm-hmm.
were able to build their tribes, their societies, and ultimately lead us to where we are.
Yeah.
Definitely, the way of the mind is more certain in a way that it's more science-based. There is a right or wrong. There is a you can duplicate it, or if no, it's proven a false hypothesis. As
Mm-hmm.
where the way of the heart, oh, that relates to the way of the unconscious mind. It's full of dark, unexplored chambers,
Yeah.
and because also the experience of entering there is so unique and individual,
Mm-hmm.
you can't necessarily corroborate it with a method that works for everybody. Some people enter the way of the heart and the unconscious mind through religion. Others enter it with meditation. Others enter it with movement.
Mm-hmm.
Others enter with writing. So it's unique. For
Yeah.
you, it's unique. For me, it's unique for our listener.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. Yeah. So what was if we want to like go back a little bit, like through your journey, and is there a way we can put this together, the energy, the flow and energy, and how it kind of shaped you the last years, and the so the last years, what has happened, and in correlation with this energy flow?
Um, do you want to know over the last year or the
Uh,
period that birthed the book? Because that was actually about 10 years.
I would say, yeah, 10 years sounds like, I mean, yeah, the birth, if it happened, the birth of the book happened 10 years ago, I think I'm interested hearing about this journey. Yeah.
Well, there were, ever since I was a young girl, a child, I had about three certainties, and I didn't know where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
One was that I was going to live Mexico City, my place of birth. Another one was that I wasn't meant to have children in this life. And another one was writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
So they were there and they were so buried in my subconscious, yet I could feel things throughout my life that pulled me in the right directions.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, ending up in Canada. Number two, not having children, which has allowed me to work with a lot of clients that have been my biggest teachers and also continue my self-development in a different direction. Because as a mother, I would have evolved in a different direction. And
Right.
number three, the certainty of carrying a book inside of me, which became more obvious in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
The change, the defining moment was when I started my physical transformation. So I came to study the Bachelor of Applied Arts Illustration at Sheridan College, and I
Mm-hmm.
graduated after 5 years with a degree in art. Can't you tell I'm also an
Mm-hmm.
artist?
Oh yeah. For those who can't
And
see, it's beautiful, beautiful painting behind her. Yeah.
thank you. And remind me to talk about contrast because that is why this painting is back here
Mm-hmm.
and it also relates to my book. So we'll make a note there.
Yeah.
So I started working in the industry and I did what everybody does. And I hoped for what most people hope for, which is start a job, grow inside a company, every year get an increase in my salary and live, go back home and then separate my work life from
Mm.
my life. However, it didn't fan out like that. I have a lot of integrity to anything that I choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that unfortunately, there was no guidance for someone like me. And since I was giving my all, the company I was working for kept taking from me. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up doing the job of three people just before I fell out of that position. And it broke me. It truly broke me. It made me grow because I was naive. I was a naive recent graduate, hoping the best out of the world, and I hadn't encountered the reality of it. And for the next 3 years, I was broke, overweight, depressed. I put me and my husband in a big debt that took us various years to get out of.
Mm-hmm.
And I gained a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about 24, but the pain I felt in my mind, in my heart, and in my body was similar to what I have heard people in their 80s or 90s
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah.
So I was young, yet I was done. And that's a very intense and sad thing to say. I hated myself. I truly did hate myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so what sparked the change was preparing for a fitness competition. This was in 2011. It wasn't so popular back then. Not a lot of people were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it was harshly judged. It was something unhealthy to do. I mean, there's still quite a big debate about it.
Yeah.
And I can tell you my experience has been unique in comparison to other competitors. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
has their own real story. Uh, but that shifted me. So the transformation that is sparked this is probably the cherry on top of the cake. Started
Yeah.
as a physical transformation.
Yeah. Okay, wow. That just reminds me of the hero journey. So you went through the whole cycle, and now you're sharing with other people, like you kind of have a message that you're sharing with other people. So for those who haven't read the book, which I advise everyone, it's really well written, and I like the way how the story is told throughout the book. So what is really the message you're trying to convey? If you can like kind of summarize it a little bit.
Yes. So the best way, what is right now in my, what I'm going to deliver to you, it's
Yeah.
probably the best way for those who are going to listen to our podcast, and those of you who are accompanying us here right now.
Mm-hmm.
The message of the book is to get to know yourself. So whether it is your body, whether it is your negative emotions, the pain you feel inside of you, there is a purpose of the highest good for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have been taught at some moment in life to not talk about our negative emotions. There was a moment in time where you would just, in the fitness world, they would say, suck it up, buttercup, more reps, I was trained like that as a, yeah. I was trained like that
Yeah.
back in Mexico, playing at the national level volleyball. Suck it up, buttercup. Injuries were something to be dealt
Yeah.
with later, right? And
Mm-hmm.
emotions, you didn't. In Mexico, being of conservative upbringing, you don't talk about them. There's a saying, you wash your dirty clothes at home. So meaning it is
Mm.
unsafe
Yeah.
or not appropriate to talk about them.
Yeah.
Then later on in life, you and I were promised, under the impression of safe spaces, that it was safe, or safe opportunities, that it was safe to share our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes only to find out that maybe it wasn't as safe as we thought, or once we open up that lid and spoke about negative emotions or the pain we were feeling, then it's like Pandora's box was open. More stuff kept coming up, and neither you or I were taught what to do with those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the meat of my book, which is chapter probably 7, 8, yeah, that was one of the biggest, I'd say, lessons I wanted to share with the world, that negative emotions carry an energy and a message.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel them, if you understand them, it is an energy that can help you just improve the physical reality of your life, the mental and emotional health in your life, and then continue to expand onto those you love, onto those who matter, and into the world around you eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, yes, it is. I want to say that this book is an introduction. There's going
Yeah.
to be more material coming from me,
Yeah.
because one book, it's not the end of it. It's
Yeah.
just the beginning. Even for me as an author, it's just the beginning of a bigger journey as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so how can I put this out there in the world and leave it up to you to decode by yourself, right? It
Mm.
is like telling you how you should eat without helping you understand your food.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how I know that I have a bigger responsibility of not just having written the book for you to continue exploring yourself, but being able to be here for the people who read it and say, wow, this is changing me. What do I do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a challenging work you have, like changing people's mind, or just convincing of telling about your story, and like you have a specific message, especially when it comes to spirituality, or about your mindset. Putting words on them is so difficult, and language, like we forget that language was invented. It's limited, like there's a saying that goes by, maybe it was on your book, I think, it went like, emotions are limited by our vocabulary. And it's the same thing that goes with writing a book. So you are limited by what language gave us. And not all those, like we wrote like we invented the language for a specific purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe it wasn't intended for specific part of our mind and part of our experiences. And sometimes the best way to grow is to actually experience these things. And once you get there, there's nothing else to say, because once you get to this state of mind of peaceful, like you become peaceful and relaxed, and you see, like, you change the way you see life around you. There's no other word you can give. And I think the Buddha was asked, oh, so so he's been asked a lot of times, like, so you've seen God, so what does it look like? How does it look like? And you've been asked all these questions, and every time he goes silent, and people would misunderstand him. It was like he's bullshitting. Like, there's no way, like, you saw God, like, you can describe him in some way. But once you get there, there's no words anymore. And I feel that's the challenge of how do you, like, translate like a spiritual experience into actual words that were not necessarily invented for that purpose. And that's why a lot of religions are misunderstood, a lot of scriptures. And yeah, I see that the big challenge you have there.
Oh, that's right. Because, you know, language was ultimately invented by man, correct? And it was invented so that we could grasp the world around us, so that you and I can communicate as best as we can the universe that you carry inside in your mind and the universe that I carry inside in my mind.
Yeah.
And even if you and I were sitting in this same room, which we are in a virtual reality, that on itself is fascinating to me as well.
Yeah.
But if you and I were sitting in the same room right now, that room would be a completely different room to you than it is to me. So again, language is an attempt to have common ground and agree upon what is it that we're talking about. But, you know, emotions, pain, spiritual experiences are, yes, language is in a function of the mind. How can the mind grasp these experiences, which are way greater than just, you know, my consciousness here inside of me? You know, I'm pointing to my brain. I think I talk about that. Brain and mind are not the same, but my consciousness here versus something that expands into the infinite space and time out there. So definitely language sometimes falls short. Now, that is another reason why I'm so passionate about art and movement, because they can be a form of universal languages that transcend words in a way that you can watch my painting, you can watch me move, and you would still get a message from that.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that answers a lot the previous questions of how to translate this state of minds into something that's understandable. And sometimes you need other languages than just writing or speaking, and you have to, like you can embody them too. So there's, like, one thing that I like and I would like to have in my coaching practice, for example, is being the silent teacher, which means I don't want to impose anything on anybody, but I just want to live in a healthy manner and have, like, a good way of living. And by just embodying these teachings that I get from different places and that I think are good for people around me, just try to be this person. And just being this person means, like, it can go in many, many different ways. Like the way, let's say, how your posture looks, and how you're walking, how you're moving, how you're speaking, how you're sleeping. All of this come together as a language that you can use to help people change. And it can go in many, many different ways. There goes arts, like you do a lot of movements, and yeah, that's fascinating. So if we go back, since now you've mentioned the movement aspect and the way you use movement as a way to translate these experiences. So what's your journey when it comes to movement? So I know that you come from a bodybuilding kind of practice, and then you kind of switch it a little bit. And in your book, I think you're talking about the vanilla chocolate analogy. I'll let you put that in your own words. So what's been your journey?
Well, first, I should warn you, I'm still a meathead and a bodybuilder at heart. That started my transformation, and
Uh-huh.
it was such a simple way for me to start learning about my body. So, for example, it was chest day, and I knew I needed to get in the gym and hit my chest at at three different angles at least, and then when I would move on to shoulders, and it was just from knowing nothing about my body to
Mm-hmm.
being like, oh, there is a logical way to train the body. I slice my shoulder in three oranges, and I make sure I move, for X amount of sets in a week or in a day,
Mm-hmm.
and it grows and it looks better. So it was
Mm-hmm.
so simple, right?
Yeah.
And again, it took me through a powerful physical transformation. It was always, except for the first out of my 11 shows, except for the first, the
Mm-hmm.
other 10 shows where every time I prepared for a competition, it meant complete integrity to being the best version of myself. My health increased, my energy increased, even my clients got inspired by watching me. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess since then, you can start observing the integrity, the integration of who I am as a form of energy in motion, which is, the title of my book.
Yeah.
Then I went to the Arnolds in 2015. I
Mm-hmm.
competed as an Arnold's amateur figure competitor, and I mean Arnold Schwarzenegger, and this in competition in the States, it's one of the two biggest bodybuilding competitions in the world. And I placed
Mm-hmm.
fourth. I placed fourth as a
Wow.
natural bodybuilder. And I remember standing in the final stage. It was a trade show as big as at least three football fields, and
Mm-hmm.
I could maybe see about 10,000 people just gather around it. It was a peak experience in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like my mission as a bodybuilder was fulfilled there. Then I returned home and I stopped competing because I I couldn't top that experience. I didn't find a way to top that experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so my accountability to working out got lower. However, I came across the discipline of animal flow.
Mm-hmm.
That year, I did so good that I was working for Good Life Fitness, and I had won a worldwide, no, not worldwide, sorry, Canada-wide award that paid for my CanFit Pro attendance, which is, the biggest trade show in, you know, um, personal training
Fitness. Yeah.
certification,
Mm-hmm.
fitness. Yes, exactly. And I wouldn't have gone had it not been for that award.
Mm-hmm.
And there I went, and one of my time slots, I filled it with this thing called animal flow, and I didn't know what this animal flow thing meant. I'd done
Mm-hmm.
theater when I was younger, and I thought,
Right.
well, if you're gonna make me crawl and sound like an animal, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. It's always a fun experience. I'm up for things like that. And to my surprise, I found that it was science-based sound discipline. One of the first ones that integrated fascia, which I had learned from fascia stretch therapy,
Mm-hmm.
integrated fascia, integrated quadrupedal movement, core, joint strength, and the reasoning behind slings and how we used our body. This was in 2015. Right now, it's becoming more of a mainstream way to go,
Mm-hmm.
but it blew my mind in 2015. I passionately started just mimicking the videos online until I realized that I was screwing up the recipe. No matter how good I am at
Mm.
shape shifting and mimicking someone that I follow on Instagram, I
Yeah.
was making shit up. So I decided to take the certification,
Mm-hmm.
and that is when the physical practice went from being just single planner, to put it that way, unidimensional as a bodybuilder. It became multidimensional physical experience as an animal flow practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that integration of the physical experience, something that has no words. I could have learned it all in a book. I could have understood the mind, the science behind it, but to embody it was a completely different way of understanding it. And so that experience as well brought some emotional experiences, and it's part of what is integrated in this book as well. The
Mm-hmm.
physical, the emotional, the mental aspect of it. And now, when it comes to movement, your body, my body, is unbound by rules. It knows no rules. Yet,
Mm-hmm.
you and I have been playing the same rules for a little too long. How we
Yeah.
stand, how we sit, how we work on the computer, it's limiting our bodies into the planes that are useful to us. However, over time, our bodies forget, your body, my body forgets that there are more ways to move. And this is
Mm-hmm.
where you as a coach, and I know it's primal training, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably also versed in what it means to remember the knowledge that it's our birthright, not just in
Right.
the body. And when you experience it in the body, it also starts expanding into mind and heart and and the awareness of others. That's the thing. Once I
Yeah.
started this journey, it started with, you could say, an ego pursuit, a bodybuilding, a physical wanting to look a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Once I achieved success in that, my experiences started to expand, and right now I'm in a position where I cry a lot. I cried often. I didn't used to cry at all, by the way. And
Mm-hmm.
I cry when I sense what we are doing to the planet, what my
Mm.
food choices or what my purchasing choices, how they impact the planet, how it impact others and the planet. And I feel it. I feel it all. Just like this painting, I have some really
Mm.
happy days. Like today I saw snow. For some reason, it sparked happiness and good colors inside of me. I can feel them bursting out. And
Yeah.
some other days I walk out and I see the garbage on the forest and I go here in a dark spot.
Mm.
So so we were tying this up at the beginning, the expansion of awareness. It started
Yeah.
with me, my own world, my own needs. And once I fulfilled those, I kept growing and growing and growing. And now it's like I can hug and contain more of the world around me inside myself. And that comes with a lot of emotions, which are good to
Yeah.
observe. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's why we're here, to experience a big range of emotions, to
Yeah.
be troubled and to look for answers and to share with others as well.
What a
Yeah.
nice message. Yeah.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah,
Yes.
so it's interesting how exploring different movements puts you in a state where you can explore different emotions. And this, I don't know if you're familiar with Osho type of meditation. Are you?
No. Now
Yes.
tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so Osho, so I've practiced a little bit this type of meditation. It puts you in a, so Osho type of meditation is more an active kind of meditation. So you're gonna be jumping, running around, shouting, and it's like really different from like the meditation we know where you're seated and just breathing and you
Yeah,
try to
eyes closed
everything
and
controlled in a controlled manner, which has worked for me for a long time, but now I feel that I'm more attuned to this like moving meditation. And one of his ideas is you want to break the pattern of movement. So let's say if you start like jumping like this, you might end up easily under the same pattern, and you're gonna be doing the same meditation every time, like same plane of movements and just moving like this.
uh-huh.
But this type of meditation, you want to explore and like really move your body in different directions and like be innovative and like jump and just like lay on the ground and like and what I really like about this, it's breaking this pattern, like really puts you in this, makes you explore so many different range of emotions. And what I learned from this is something that I like slowly introducing in my training regime and with my clients as well, where I always try to put people in like a challenging movements and a movement that you're not used to it, even though like you can have like, let's say just like a squat or like a single leg squat or something like that, but you want to change it just a little bit to make it uncomfortable and make
Yeah.
you explore your muscles differently. And exploring your muscles differently, like you will be putting your mind in this like different motions. And so that's one thing that I learned from like going from meditation to movement, and then you kind of put it in your practice. And I feel it's something to remember. It's not like everything is connected, and like it can go all the way to your we're talking about like your posture. Like your posture has so much impact on your mindset, and you want to be able to see this connection and just explore. And exploration goes from moving differently so you can feel differently, and feel differently so you can move differently. So they kind of go
Absolutely.
together.
Absolutely. And you just mentioned something key, that it's also part of the experience of reading my book. And I hope I did that for you. Mild discomfort. So
Mm-hmm.
with, maybe it's the chapters where I start talking about negative emotions. Maybe one of them that I mentioned creates a personal trigger for you, for my reader. Maybe it's when I start introducing new ways, new perspectives, because I cannot convince someone to think like me, and that is actually not my intention. My intention is to share my world, to share perspectives that I have observed within my world, so that when you read them, when you experience it, and even when you get mild discomfort reading it, there is the experience of contrast. Yes, now I remember to touch base upon that.
Yeah.
Yes, because it is only when there is big experience of contrast out there in our world. So some 3 years ago, I would ask someone how they felt about certain subjects, and they seem to be in the middle. Right now, I hardly ever encounter someone in the middle. And if they are in the middle, I fear that it could be more out of numbness, or just wanting to isolate themselves from the experience of understanding what's happening out there. But
Mm.
I'm seeing a lot of contrast. You either believe this or you don't believe it, but you're not in the middle. You can't be in the middle. And in fact, some of those who are in the middle are being wronged, which, you know what? Being wronged, being labeled, creates is not a safe space for dialogue. And we need dialogue. I need dialogue with
Mm-hmm.
you, because when you experience a concept differently than I do, we can talk about all the colors in between. And when you and I do that, when I do that with my audience, which is my hope too, it's not just one way. I'm not just throwing you my book and expecting you to read it. I would love to hear your thoughts about it as my audience, as my reader,
Mm.
to understand. Because when you tell me what you experienced when I was giving you those concepts, and when I give you those concepts, and you can understand if you start in the lighter spectrum, in the uplifting spectrum, or in the darker one, you can make a choice about where you want to go. But if you're floating in the middle, somewhat numb,
Mm.
it's sometimes that's where people fall into loopholes of hell, which I think I also talk about in the book, and how fitting it is. Because just like you mentioned with the Osho meditation, or you as a movement coach yourself, when you have your clients squatting, and then all of a sudden you throw something at them that makes them mildly uncomfortable, yet it makes them grow in a way of understanding more of their body and their capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I have a story to share. So right now here in areas of Toronto, we're in a lockdown. I don't know when that's going to end. And I remember just before this lockdown started, I had started seeing one-on-one movement clients again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was experiencing a lot of anxiety in the morning, just knowing that I had to jump on my car, drive over there to see people. And again, anxiety, what is that? I define it as a creative force being trapped inside for a little too long.
Mm.
And this anxiety was also triggered by just subconsciously, my mind had been absorbing, from the news, from the comment of others, possibly stuff that I don't necessarily believe, but that because I am aware and I care, it impacts me. And so jumping into my car and driving over to the training facility was uncomfortable enough to almost make me cry some days. Yet
Mm.
when I fulfilled my mission of showing up for another person, for helping them, for guiding them, for having them become healthier through moving their bodies, I always came home feeling uplifted. So mild discomfort, not excruciating pain, is a good way to go into uncharted territories of our consciousness, of our emotions.
Mm.
But if the pain or the discomfort is too much, again, just because genetically we've been living like that for a long time, we're gonna tend to go back into our caves and shelter and throw fire at stuff we don't understand. So
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean, if I can share an insight that I've had, whether it's in training or in experiencing and processing the world that we are facing right now, it's take it on small doses of mild discomfort, and from there continue to explore the contrast and have dialogue as often as you can with others. You might not always agree, but that's a good thing. Because
Yeah.
imagine if the whole world thought like me. If everybody right now had written a book called Energy in Motion: How to Unleash Your Mind and Take Action Now, I wouldn't have anybody to talk with because nobody would disagree with me. They would all love what I did. No
Yeah.
disagreement.
Yeah.
I need disagreement too. Makes it exciting.
Yeah, I really like the idea of contrast, and my personal experience with contrast, I've always been in the one, the type you were describing, of you're like kind of in the middle and you don't want to take decision, and it was me for many years. And the way I was rationalizing it is I was thinking, oh, I'm stoic and that's the way I am, and I don't want to take like big commitments and like big changes and big opinions. I'm kind of in the middle, and that's fine because you never know what's really true, what's really wrong. And it was enough for me, until I realized that this stoic kind of mindset, it wasn't coming from really a stoic position, but it was more of a fear-based. I mean, I know that there are some stoic people out there that are not afraid to take decision, but for me, it was because I was afraid and I was making it like rational, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the way I am. And then when I started to take in like more stronger opinions and like try to challenge myself, am I really stoic or afraid? And when I started testing it, I started to see my limits, and it changed my life completely in a way that I'm still, whenever I take like maybe a little bit stronger opinion, I don't put myself in a position that it is religious and that's the only truth, and everyone else is wrong. But um, when I take this decision or opinion, I know that there are other truths out there, but it's my role in this life to speak it up and talk about this truth that I think is the right thing to do, or and being open also to have conflict as well, because we're afraid of conflict, and it's a lot of things where this fear because you don't want other people telling you you're wrong, and yeah, I'm still in this journey trying to push my limits and talk about what's really important for me, without necessarily being a jerk with other people who think who have like stronger opinions that are different from mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your experience with Stoicism. I can't say I have studied it enough to be able to share an informed opinion
Mm-hmm.
or experience. Some concepts are just wonderful. And I love that you have shared how in diving deeper into what it meant, because again, we're limited by words, and we're limited in our understanding of what stoicism is. Maybe it's a label that wasn't, well, maybe the definition of it has been modified nowadays compared to
Mm-hmm.
what it originally was intended to be by the people who practice it first. And it has evolved. Everything evolves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in your understanding of the difference between living it because it was in line with your values versus a band-aid for fear. I
Mm-hmm.
love what you just shared. And again, it's something that similarly I share in my book, exploring what is being a band-aid in people's lives, or a justification for not taking action, for not following their dreams, for not saying I'm sorry to someone they love,
Mm.
and explore that. What is the message, right? Because that negative emotion is going to stay there. Fear, for example, is going to stay there until you find out what it's telling you.
Yeah.
It reminds me too. So my brother, we have a lot of conversation, and my
Mm-hmm.
brother is of the mind. We talk about the Matrix, and
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of also a concept that inspired, ideas in my book.
Yeah.
My brother talks about just observing this reality of the matrix. If you just observe, let's say, the zeros, the positive aspect of the matrix, then your world is going to be full of that, and this is not even going to be a physical reality. And I tell him, well, but I see this. If I don't talk about it, this color, this heavy, dark, negative emotion, unexplored section is still there. And this is still there. So I'm not, if I was, because maybe in his world it functions that way. And I respect that. And I love having this disagreement with him. But
Yeah.
in my world, I need to observe and talk about this to understand it better because it's showing up in my life. So if no, it would be like putting a band-aid and ignoring it, and then it would start crawling up out again and get at me. If I don't understand my darkness, then it's gonna overpower me. But if I
Mm.
understand it, I can start a dialogue with my darkness and learn from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. And so again, writing a book, I can tell you, has been one of the scariest experiences in my life, more than moving to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
more than standing on stage being judged in a tiny blingy bikini in front of like 10,000 people and cameras and everything,
Mm-hmm.
because it brought out a lot of areas of myself that I haven't explored. And one of my plans for this year is to coach people through writing their own book if they
Mm.
know they have a book inside of themselves. So it's something again that I want to put out there. Being a creative person,
Mm-hmm.
one of my journals is filled with ideas on writing a book, on how to write a book.
Huh.
So
I might need your
yes.
help then.
Oh, you and I. Let's connect about that as well, because definitely that's something that it's a project of mine to share with the world shortly.
Mm-hmm.
I have many projects. What can you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Amazing.
I know you and some people out there have started tapping into the certainty that they have a book inside themselves. They just don't know how to go about it. So I want to share that I can help you and we can connect and
Mm.
explore what that means in your world, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. Now, I want to ask you, where are you in my book, Mamoun?
Where I am?
Yeah, have you finished it?
Yeah, I did. I did. I
Oh,
finished.
wow, that was fast.
I uh,
What?
I actually I find time, like I try to schedule time to
Uh-huh.
read as much as I can. I love reading books, and maybe it's actually a bad thing that I read too much sometimes, that I don't let like the information like sink in. But I mean I love reading books, and whenever I see like someone like that, like let's say if I find someone that I like the way they live or the way they're being, the first thing I'm gonna check, oh, do they have a book? Like I want to like go like really deep in their mind, and that's
Yes.
fascinating for me. And yeah, I actually yeah, I did read it all.
Whoa. So tell me, what was your most favorite concept or experience as you were reading my book?
Yeah, I think that there's one thing that I really liked about the way it was written, and it was the way it was put in like simple situations. You really have an ease of putting really complicated concepts in a way that they're like translated in like like simple analogies. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that I really liked, because it kind of puts a contrast sometimes when I read other books that are they can be like heavy on science, like in science, or like
Mhm.
difficult concepts, and people try to make it like even more complicated but the way you're, I think it's not, not everyone can do it. Like put this concept, this spiritual concept in a way that they're funny, simple, and it just, I think that's the way you communicate and you make it look really fun. So I it wasn't like a challenge for me to go. I mean, there's still the big challenge is actually integrating this concept in your daily life, and that's why I was saying like sometimes I read too much, but I need to let the information stay like a little bit, and that's anyone's challenge when reading your book or other books. So you need to like process it and really like experience it. And so yeah, I think the one thing that I liked was, you know, these examples, and it's fun.
Yes.
It's I was quite, like, now that I like I've been talking to you and I heard your voice, I can imagine you actually like I can
Like
imagine your
talking to
voice
me.
over your text, you know.
That's amazing. You know, someone shared with me that I love my food analogies. There's several of them in the book. And I'm like, yes, I love food, from the most beautiful piece of lettuce to the dirtiest, saltiest chip. I love food. So definitely that is something funny that I had to use. You know, the ice
Yeah,
cream analogy, chocolate, vanilla, right?
yeah, it's great. I liked it.
Yes.
And for many people, like we all have different gifts and different ways we communicate our feelings. That's why we have comedians and uh, there's so many ways like you can say what you think, and I think you can be a good comedian too. The way you put things, yeah, it's
Oh, you just planted a seed. I'm gonna let it grow in there and see what I can do with that. Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah,
why Animal Flow attracted me, because it was the theatrical aspect and the
right.
fun aspect. The being like a child. A child underneath the age of 7 is the best example of how unbound by rules
Mm,
we can be, right? And how we
mm,
start forgetting that the more we grow, the more we define our realities in X, Y, or Z ways.
yeah, because adults are
So,
meant to be serious. I mean, you meant to say the right thing, and we
yes,
don't explore these places, you know.
absolutely. You when you were talking about reading books and letting them just drop down into your personal experience, that
Hmm.
was another aspect that told me I was ready to write a book. So I have all of them here, like
Hmm.
lined up. But I've read books on, physical books that help me understand my body, salt, sugar, fat, why zebras don't get ulcers. Then read the book Hooked was very impactful for me
Hmm.
nowadays. There's Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name properly.
Yeah, some say
Um,
Tolly, Toll, but I guess they're both right.
yes, yeah. Superhuman was also a really good
Hmm.
book. Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza
Right.
sparked a lot of breakthroughs in my life. But I kept reading through, I love reading as well. I read about at least 10 books a year. That's not a lot, but definitely
Good.
impactful. But
Yeah.
at some point, I started reading the same material, just being delivered in different ways. But I could see the
Mm.
pattern. It was the same blueprint, different themes, different characters, different stories, but the same blueprint.
Hmm.
And so I said, I think I have reached a point where this is it. I'm not seeing any new information, neither in books, nor in TV series, nor in science fiction stuff. I wasn't seeing anything new. And so I said, maybe it's time for me to integrate my experience and deliver it in my own way. And when I did that, I started seeing new patterns. So I no longer could find them outside of me. I had to take a deep dive into the infinity inside of me, and that is where
Right.
I started seeing new information. I knew it was time,
Mm.
again, because I couldn't see anything new outside. So I had to go
Wow.
elsewhere to look for that inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. I think it's, I mean, you when you reach this point where you see like everything is the same, we're just speaking different languages, but the message is the same. Um, you start to really understand something really profound, and also a lot of the separation we have between us humans and with the planet, with everything, it kind of dissolves because you see the unity in everything we're doing. If you're a Muslim or Jew or Christian, it was the exact same message written in different languages, and that's what people don't realize sometimes. It's just the way we function. We were given like, it seems that we're different. It seems that we're given different like codes of conduct or like different messages. We can live a little bit differently one from the other, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. We stand for the same thing. So it's I like that you kind of reach this realization, and and you see the importance of like just breathe in and go inside and see it in your own words, in your own language too, because all throughout this time you've been reading it from the voices from languages from different people, and all they were trying to do is deliver this message that you have inside, but you can actually not just read it, but you can experience it. And and also people forget, like, so let's say prophets, for example, they came up with a message to a specific tribe, to specific people, and these prophets had to go inside themselves to deliver this message. And what people don't realize is that they just did their best to explain something that's hard to explain in words, but it doesn't mean you cannot just go inside and find the exact same thing in your own language. So it's yeah, it's
Oh,
this is really
fascinating
interesting.
subject. You can only perceive outside in the world something you carry inside. It's like the world is constantly mirroring, the outside world is constantly mirroring the world inside.
Hmm.
So, even some people have called me a witch. Some people call me a scientist.
That's a
But
compliment, yeah.
yeah, I like it. Like that.
Yeah.
I say yes to both. And it is like when I get, the term downloads. This is new language. Download synchronicity, new language that we're using to describe the occurrence of patterns in our
Hmm.
lives. So coincidences, the possibility that A plus B leads to C. Again, it has evolved language into synchronicities
Hmm.
and flow. So me integrating my outside world through my inside experience is a mirror of what I have inside. I couldn't have experienced that if I hadn't that inside.
Hmm.
So again, in putting that information in my book, it is my hope that by having people observe that experience outside, they have an internal integration as to what that means inside of their infinity, inside of their universe inside.
Yeah.
So it's like I can share with you the elements, but you have to piece together your own answer, because that is the best answer, not my
Hmm.
answer. Your answer is the best answer for you. My answer is the best answer for me. And then we can come together and talk about what those answers were and keep
Hmm.
growing with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I really dig this conversation, and
oh, I
uh
know we can keep going for hours. We might need to do a second one, like you said.
I think we're in a synchronicity. We're on the same we're thinking about the same thing. I was thinking about having a part two and going deeper with this conversation. I think we
Yeah.
can keep it as a whole podcast, and it's fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. And you know
Yeah.
what? An idea that occurred to me because I see our listeners commenting is I would love to hear some of their questions and
Hmm.
and and when we meet again to go over the answers, my thoughts, my experiences, your thoughts, your experiences, and have them become a part of this creation. We're creating a dialogue, but have
Yeah.
our listeners' questions be answered there too. So
I
that's
love
an
it.
invitation. If you're listening, type your questions because I would love to have a dialogue with you and create contrast with that as well.
That's great. Let's do this. Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So,
Well,
yeah.
Alejandra, I have a few questions that I ask everyone at the end of the podcast. So when you woke up this morning, what was the one thing you were grateful for?
Oh, I was grateful to be able to tap into two energies that I could have grasped this morning. So I opened my eyes and it's almost like I felt them floating on top of my body. And there was an energy of possibility and there was an energy of despair. And I was grateful that I hadn't decided, well, none of them have traveled down to me, but
Mm-hmm.
I had the power of choice. That moment when I woke up, I knew I could choose if today I wanted to feel despair or I wanted to feel possibility. And
Ah,
I yes, the power of choice. I was most thankful for that this morning.
that's great. Thanks for sharing.
That's a
And
great question.
yeah, and here's a tricky one. What is your one mistake, or what is actually your worst mistake that you're, let me word it differently.
I'm like
uh,
intrigued.
so, what is the one mistake that you're actually grateful for, or the best mistake? Let's put it this word. What is your best mistake?
having having allowed myself, because I think at some level of consciousness there is a permission to experience something. I am grateful that I was broke, overweight, and depressed for 3 years. Because without that darkness, I couldn't be who I am today. And in
Mm,
fact, I had to, at some moment in my life, write a letter thanking my old self, thanking the Alejandra from 2010 for
hmm.
having had the courage to be that person and to feel so lost. Again, because without that experience, I wouldn't be who I am today. So I'm most thankful for those, for the mistakes of those 3 years. It's a lot of
Yeah,
time.
the best mistakes. These are the best mistakes. They allow you to feel more and tap into this space where you can know who you are.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, thanks a lot, Alejandra. I really, really enjoyed this. If people want to know more about what you do, what's the best place they can go to?
The best place, well, if you're in Instagram, if you're listening and you're in Instagram, follow me on Instagram. I'm quite active. You will always know what I am up to, and I love sharing short but powerful insights along with
Hmm.
my movement practice.
Hmm.
And also my website, energyinmotionbook.com. Like I said, the book is just the beginning.
Hmm.
You have read it, Mamoun, and I mentioned resources on my website. They are still yet to be created, and I'm going to invite my audience to be part of the creation process.
Mm.
So, yes, bookmark the website, sign up to receive what are those? The email
Yeah,
newsletters.
newsletter. Yeah,
I am very quiet online when it
yeah.
comes to sharing emails, so you'll probably receive 3 or 4 updates a year. I
Hmm.
won't spam you, I promise you, because this has to feel right to you.
Yeah,
So yes, I would recommend just subscribing to the newsletter so I can let you know when I'll be running a free seminar on some of the chapters of the book, a book club perhaps. So those are some ideas. So I would say Instagram and subscribing to my website.
amazing. Awesome. Thanks, Alejandra. Thanks for everyone who's joined in today. And this is gonna be on YouTube, Spotify soon as well. So yeah, it was really, I really enjoyed it. We'll talk
Oh,
soon for part two, right?
absolutely. Thank you so much, Mamoun. And I want to thank you for gifting me this time and space in your account, in your life, so that you and I, with this conversation, can share, just intriguing contrast and some
Hmm.
resources. I'm sure this conversation could have sparked someone's day today and changed
Yeah.
the decision. So
Hope
Very
so.
grateful for that. Very grateful for you listening me here on Instagram, and right now this is our present. It will
Hmm.
be someone's future. They'll listen to us on Spotify or YouTube, and when they're
Right.
listening, we would have become their past. How cool
Mm.
is that? We're collapsing time.
Yeah, our consciousness will be everywhere. It is everywhere. So yeah,
Absolutely. Multidimensionality.
that's
Oh,
it.
like I said, more stuff
We
to
can
come
keep going. We
soon.
can keep going.
Yes,
Yeah.
but thank you
Yeah.
so much. I
Thanks.
send you a big hug.
Me too.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Take care.
Have a great
You
day.
too. Bye bye.
Bye.